Stop right there." Those were the explosive words that froze an entire street, right before an officer made the biggest mistake of his career. A woman alone, a stalled car, a cop overflowing with anger he couldn't explain. He didn't ask questions. He didn't offer help. He just attacked, shoving her, striking her, and humiliating her in front of a crowd that immediately started recording. But here's the twist he never saw coming. The woman he assaulted wasn't just any citizen. She was Dr. Maya Thompson, the newly appointed director of the Civilian Oversight Bureau, the one person with the power to investigate, discipline, suspend, and even fire officers like him. By the time the sun rose the next morning, the video had gone viral, the entire city was watching, and the officer walked into a meeting that would shake him to his core. Because the woman he hit was now his boss. And she wasn't there for revenge. She was there for accountability, the kind that transforms an entire police department from the inside out. "Don't you move." Those 3 words cracked across the quiet evening like a whip. The setting sun cast long shadows over Riverside Avenue, and the faint traffic hum was the only sound, until Officer Mark Holden's harsh voice tore through the calm. His patrol car screeched to a halt behind the stalled sedan, red and blue lights splashing across the sidewalk, and he marched forward with a kind of fury that made everyone nearby freeze. Dr. Maya Thompson stood beside her car, holding her phone, still connected to roadside assistance. Her battery had died minutes earlier. She wasn't distressed, just inconvenienced. After all, she had just wrapped up a full day of leadership meetings at the Civilian Oversight Bureau, the agency tasked with reviewing police misconduct. She was tired but calm. Mark, however, didn't see calm. He saw something else entirely. He approached fast, boots slamming the pavement, hand hovering above his baton. There was no greeting, no concern, no assessment of the situation. "License," he barked. "Now." Maya blinked, slightly startled by the aggression in his tone. She raised her hands just slightly, not in fear, but in deliberate transparency. "Officer, I'm just waiting for." Before she could finish, he stepped in and shoved her shoulder. Hard. Gasps erupted from the small group of people walking on the sidewalk. One woman covered her mouth. A teenager pulled out his phone and hit record. "You people think you can just stand anywhere, huh?" Mark snapped, circling her like she was a threat instead of a stranded driver. Maya's heartbeat quickened, but her training helped her stay composed. She had faced conflict in boardrooms, hearings, and public forums, but never like this. Never from someone who was supposed to protect. "Officer," she said steadily, "you're escalating something that doesn't need escalating. My car died. That's all." But Mark's voice only grew sharper. "Don't talk back. Give me your phone." He reached forward, trying to snatch it. Maya instinctively pulled her hand back, but Mark, already tense, reacted in the worst way. He struck her forearm as he grabbed for the device. The crowd shouted. Someone yelled, "Hey!" She didn't do anything. Maya didn't flinch, didn't fight, didn't even raise her voice. She simply looked him dead in the eyes and said, calm as ever, "Officer Holden, you are making the biggest mistake of your career." The video spread like wildfire. Within 5 minutes, it was on TikTok. Within 30 minutes, it hit Twitter. Within an hour, it passed 500,000 views. People were furious, not just because of the force used, but because of the identity of the woman in the video. She wasn't just a citizen. She wasn't just someone stranded. She was Dr. Maya Thompson, the newly appointed director of the Civilian Oversight Bureau, the very agency responsible for holding officers like Mark accountable. She had been confirmed only the week prior. Her appointment was widely celebrated as a push toward transparency and reform. But she did not speak publicly. No tweets, no interviews, no statements. She let the video do the talking while she prepared for the next morning. Meanwhile, Mark sat in his patrol car with his partner, scrolling the video on his phone, oblivious to the storm he was about to face. "This is ridiculous," Mark muttered. She was acting suspicious. She had her hands behind her back at first. His partner sighed. "Mark," she was holding a phone charger. Mark waved it off. "People exaggerate. They always do." But his partner wasn't buying it. "Think about what you did. You shoved a woman next to a broken-down car. You hit her while people were recording. Man, this looks bad. Mark scoffed. She'll get over it. Everyone always gets over it. But he was wrong. Very, very wrong. Because while he was dismissing the entire situation, Maya was already at home, logged into the secure bureau server, pulling up the officer conduct database. And Mark's file was thick. 12 civilian complaints in 3 years. 5 for unnecessary escalation. 3 for verbal aggression. 4 for inappropriate conduct during traffic stops. Patterns that had been quietly overlooked until now. She scrolled through each complaint, noting the similarities, noting the comments, noting the excuses that supervisors had stamped into the margins. Officer followed protocol. Complainant exaggerating. No evidence to support claim. Maya exhaled slowly. Tomorrow morning, she would be meeting the department for the first time. Tomorrow morning, the man who assaulted her would learn exactly who she was. And tomorrow morning, everything would change. The next day, whispers filled the station like a rising tide. Is that the woman from the video? She's our new director? Man, someone's career is done. Officers shifted nervously, straightened their uniforms, and pretended to look busy, though every pair of eyes kept darting toward the entrance. Then the door opened. Maya stepped inside with a quiet authority that filled the room without a single raised word. She wore a crisp suit, carried a neatly organized binder, and walked with the calm confidence of someone who had earned her place. Chief Anderson cleared his throat, voice shaky. Everyone, this is Dr. Maya Thompson, the new director of the Civilian Oversight. He didn't finish, because Mark had just looked up and nearly went pale. His jaw hung open, his fingers trembled, his heartbeat thudded in his ears. He recognized her instantly. Maya didn't acknowledge his shock. Her gaze swept calmly across the room, landing briefly on every officer. Finally, she spoke, clear, steady, controlled. Yesterday evening, she began. I was assaulted by one of your officers while standing beside my disabled vehicle. I was shoved, struck, and treated as a criminal, despite doing nothing wrong. No one breathed. Maya continued. Many of you have seen the video. Many of you have also read the comments. But what matters here is not the internet reaction. What matters is accountability. Mark raised a shaky hand. Ma'am, Dr. Thompson, I didn't know. She lifted her palm, silencing him. Exactly. You didn't know. Because you didn't care to know. You didn't listen, you didn't observe, and you didn't offer even basic courtesy. Mark sat down slowly, face burning with humiliation. Officer Holden, she said, please take a seat. He sat. Hard. She opened the thick file on the desk and began reading through his conduct history. 12 civilian complaints. Multiple warnings. Several mandatory counseling referrals you never attended. A pattern of escalation that has gone unaddressed. Every word landed heavier than the last. Officers shifted uneasily. Mark swallowed. I was trying to do my job. She closed the folder. Your job is to protect the public, not intimidate them, not escalate unnecessary conflict, and certainly not strike unarmed civilians. Silence blanketed the room like snow. Everyone knew something major was coming. Mark's entire world felt like it was collapsing around him. He had worn the badge for years. He had seen dangerous situations, high-speed chases, tense arrests, but nothing had ever made him feel this vulnerable. Sitting across from Maya, surrounded by colleagues who suddenly wouldn't look him in the eye, he felt exposed. Dr. Thompson, I made a mistake, he stammered. I shouldn't have hit you, but I thought. You thought what? She asked, her voice calm but unyielding. That a woman stranded on the roadside was a threat? That speaking calmly was resistance? That her presence irritated you enough to justify force? Mark bowed his head. The truth was uncomfortable, and hearing it spoken aloud made it sharper. This wasn't just a mistake, Maya said, leaning forward slightly. This was a pattern of behavior, and this department has ignored that pattern for far too long. Her eyes moved around the room, meeting those of the other officers. How many complaints does it take? She asked, before someone steps in. 5, 10, 15. How many citizens have to feel unsafe before we stop calling it exaggeration and start calling it misconduct? No one answered. Mark tried again. I wasn't trying to be aggressive. I've just been stressed. My schedule, the pressure. Maya lifted a hand. We all have stress, but not all of us resort to force. He shut his mouth. He had no argument left. Then, surprisingly, Maya closed the binder gently and softened her tone, just slightly. Officer Holden, she said, I'm not here to destroy your career. Mark looked up, stunned. I'm here to repair a system that has allowed behaviors like yours to go unchecked. She took a breath. You are being suspended without pay. Immediately. Mark winced, but she continued. You will undergo mandatory de-escalation training, cultural and community sensitivity classes, conflict management sessions, and you will personally meet with every civilian who filed a complaint against you. A few officers shifted uncomfortably. That requirement alone was heavy. And only after all of that, Maya added, will I review whether you are fit to wear that badge again. Mark felt his eyes sting, not from anger, but from something unfamiliar, accountability. Thank you, he whispered, for giving me a chance to do better. Maya nodded slowly. Accountability is not about ruining people, she said. It's about rebuilding them. 2 months passed, and in those 2 months, Officer Mark Holden was transformed, not by force, not by punishment, but by reflection. The training sessions weren't easy. Meeting with former complainants was even harder. One woman described how terrified she felt when he shouted during a minor parking dispute. An elderly man spoke about how Mark's impatience left him shaken for days. Hearing these stories broke something open inside Mark, something he hadn't even noticed had hardened over the years. Empathy. He had lost it somewhere along the way. And now, piece by piece, he was reclaiming it. Mark began volunteering for community patrols, not to enforce, but to listen. He attended workshops, not because he had to, but because he wanted to understand what had changed inside him. The community began to take notice. He's different. He listens now. He actually cares. And it was true. One crisp afternoon, Mark walked into the Civilian Oversight Bureau building for a scheduled review. His palms were sweating, but this time it wasn't fear, it was hope. He had worked for this moment. He found Maya in the courtyard reviewing a community engagement plan. She glanced up when she heard footsteps. Dr. Thompson, he greeted, voice steady but humble. She studied him for a quiet moment. He looked different, not physically, but in his energy. How have you been, Officer Holden? She asked. I've been learning, he answered honestly. Not because I was forced, but because I finally realized how much I didn't know. Maya nodded approvingly. I wanted to thank you, Mark continued, not for sparing my job, but for holding me accountable. You gave me a chance to become better instead of simply labeling me as beyond repair. She closed the file she was reviewing. Accountability doesn't ruin people. It transforms them, she said softly. Mark smiled, genuinely, for the first time in years. I used to think authority was power, he admitted. Now I know it's responsibility. They shook hands. Professional, respectful, equal. And just like that, a story that began with confrontation ended with collaboration. When the city's media released a follow-up headline, Officer reforms after viral incident thanks to courageous new director. It went viral again. Not because people love scandal, but because people love change. And this time, the story wasn't about fear, but redemption. And in the end, the story that began with anger ended with transformation. Officer Holden didn't lose his job. He rebuilt it. He faced his mistakes, confronted every person he hurt, and became the officer he should have been all along. And Dr. Maya Thompson? She proved something powerful. Leadership isn't about punishment. It's about progress. A moment of injustice turned into a moment of change, and the city that once doubted its system finally saw what accountability looks like. This wasn't a story about humiliation. It was a story about redemption, and how one woman's calm courage changed everything.